I used to believe that a healthy relationship meant that I never got triggered, that I always felt happy, that there was never discomfort, there was never problems. Like that was a healthy relationship. What I know to be true now, for me at least, this is my truth, doesn't mean it's the truth, is that a healthy relationship is someone who you can navigate and explore triggers with curiosity. Someone who you feel safe enough to explore whatever activates you in your relationship so that you can better understand yourself. Hey babes, welcome to Codependency Alchemy, your go-to podcast and community for uncovering the raw and sometimes uncomfortable truths we need to face in order to create relationships that actually feel good. I'm your host, Alyssa, teaching you the lessons that I've learned the hard way, so hopefully you don't have to. I'm so excited to share with you guys in this episode the top 8 lessons that have absolutely shifted the way that I show up to my life and my relationship, and playing with how they can potentially support you in your life and your relationships as well. I was in my 30s when I learned all this, and if I was in my 20s, I would have loved this information. Would I have been able to actually hear or receive it? I don't know, but what is time? It's relative. We're all learning in our own unique way, and these were the lessons that I learned in my early 30s, specifically when I was 31 and going through a breakup with Justin. So now, 5 years outside of it, just celebrating my 36th birthday this year, I have taken these lessons and just seen how powerful and transformational they've actually been in my life. And so, yeah, let's dive into them. If you're not already subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and hit pause, hit that subscribe button. And if you've been here for a while and you haven't already rated or reviewed the podcast, it would help tremendously if you just took a moment to leave an honest rating or review. It helps get the podcast in front of new eyes and new listeners and people who are looking for these types of conversations. Thank you so much for supporting the show in this way. It means the world to me. Okay, so I was in my 30s when I realized that I was actually the problem in most of my relationships. And if I wasn't the problem, I was at least a part of the problem. Something that if you would have told me when I was 30, I would not have believed, because I was certain that all of the problems in my relationship were because of my partner. It was because of what he was doing. It was because of what he wasn't doing. It was a him thing, not a me thing at all. But boy, was I wrong. Okay, so the first lesson that I want to share with you guys is that I learned that when I fixate on my partner and what they're doing or not doing, it's because I'm avoiding meeting something within myself. I realized that the amount of time and energy and focus that I was putting on my partner and his healing journey and what I thought it should look like was ultimately because I didn't feel safe. And this part of me that didn't feel safe thought that if it could control this person and what they did, that it would provide me with some semblance of safety. This part of me had this belief that the person who I was with needed to be healed, needed to be fixed, needed to heal their unresolved trauma so that they show up to this relationship in a healthy way, right? And so this part of me placed its safety on my partner being a specific way. And so do you see the codependency? My safety is dependent on you and what you're doing. And when my safety is dependent on you and what you're doing, you are going to feel that pressure. It was like I had a magnifying glass over my partner. And you know, like how when you put the magnifying glass over the ant and the sun comes beaming down and it like fries them? That's basically what I was doing in my relationship. I was constantly critiquing him. I was constantly judging him. I was constantly pushing this journal, this meditation, this yoga practice. You need to do this, 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 this. And when he didn't do those things, I was continuously validating the story. See, I'm not safe. See, I'm not safe. See, I'm not safe. Instead of identifying that I don't feel safe. So how can I create that safety for myself instead of placing that safety on my partner? And so something interesting happened when Justin and I got back together. For those of you who are new here, we were together for 4 years. We broke up. We were not together for 7 months, and there was no expectation of us getting back together. So the breakup was very amicable, very respectful, but we didn't break up with this like condition that we were going to go work on ourselves and get back together. It was just, I wanted different things. He wanted different things. There was also some messy, self-sabotaging, toxic things that I was participating in at the time. If you haven't heard the Situationship podcast or the breakup that healed me, scroll back to previous seasons. I'm not going to dive into it here, but you'll get the real honest unfolding of what happened during that breakup in those episodes. So getting back together after 7 months, it brought up a lot of stuff, but through that stuff, we built a lot of trust in our relationship again. But about a year in, something interesting happened, and I started reverting back to this old pattern of fixating on Justin. So, because I was aware that I was doing this and I had done this in all my relationships before, I noticed it when it came up, right? I had a conscious awareness of it. So what had happened was I started noticing I was fixating on him and how many hours he spent on YouTube, or all the hours scrolling, or what he was eating, or his lack of working out, or whatever it was at the time. Those are, I think, the main ones. It was just like, he's not doing this, he's doing this, he's not doing this, he's doing this. And so because I learned that I do this pattern, what I did at the time was I told him, I'm doing this thing that I notice I do, and I need to figure out the root of what's going on here. So I'm going to take some space. And I told him that I just needed some time to figure out what I was going through, because I didn't want to do the same thing that I did to him in the first half of our relationship, which is magnifying glass over him, right? So I needed to like remove myself from the situation. And I set up camp in our extra, like our bonus room at the time. And this was hard for both of us. Like, he wasn't like, yeah, sounds great, you're not going to sleep in the same bed with me for who knows how long. Like, sounds good. Like, he wasn't like thumbs upping me and high-fiving me and being like, go you. Like, he also had some feelings around it. Like, it was hard for both of us because I didn't know how long it was going to take, and I didn't know what I was going to uncover. But what I knew was I didn't want to continue a dynamic or start a dynamic that had definitely negatively impacted our relationship in the beginning. So at the time, we still do. We both worked from home, and we would work together. We'd have meals together. And then I would retreat to our bonus room. I was taking baths every single night, basically. I was journaling every single night. I was meditating every single night. And that's where it became really clear that there was something that I was moving through that was deep-seated, that I was overriding, meeting, because I was fixating on him. And had I not removed myself so that I could tend to that part of me that was coming up at that time, it just would have probably driven our relationship into the ground again, right? And so I think I stayed in our bonus room for about 3 weeks, which is a long time. Like, it's a long time to like not sleep in the same bed with your partner. But in that time, I did so much inner work. I was seeing parts of myself. I think that's when I did one of my first soul retrievals, even though I didn't have that name for that at that time. I was just kind of doing this deep inner work. I was tending to a lot of unresolved trauma that was just stored in my body. I was doing a lot of movement practices. I started writing a lot, which is always like my best and easiest way to like meet parts of myself. And I came out the other side just feeling so much gratitude for my partner, feeling so much gratitude for the space that he was holding for me, seeing just how safe he was. I got to see clearly how much I was trying to control what his healing journey looked like because I thought it needed to look like mine, and really seeing how He met me in that moment, in that time. He didn't judge me. He didn't make me feel bad for the time I was taking. You could tell that he was struggling in his own ways, but he didn't make me responsible for that. He wasn't projecting that onto me. And that really showed me, hey, we're both doing the work. It just looks different. And so long as he continues to show up to the hard conversations, so long as he continues to show up with that respect in our relationship, then I'm just going to trust how he does the work is how he does the work. And it doesn't look anything like mine. And I'm not even going to be able to see it. And that's okay. Oftentimes people ask like about Justin's healing journey. And I'm like, he's never done a shadow work prompt ever in his life. He's never done an inner child healing practice once, right? So to give you context, like this relationship works and he's not doing those things. So it's possible. But I noticed the way that we talk to each other today is vastly different than even just a year ago or 3 years ago or 10 years ago. It's like night and day. The way that we show up in authenticity, the way that we take responsibility for the things that we say when we're triggered or activated, the way that we show up and hold each other through the moments when we can tell the other person is dysregulated. I don't go in and try to blindly fix things for him anymore. I show up and give him autonomy and say, I see you. How can I support you right now? And if he says, I don't need anything, I trust it, and I trust in his resilience, and I let him move through it on his own. It is vastly different. And I think it's because I have learned that he's going to have his own process, and that being a healthy partner for him is trusting that process. And anytime I want to fixate on him, to just turn it back around on me and tend to what is coming up for me. So instead of making his discomfort my responsibility, making the discomfort I feel around his discomfort my responsibility, and really focusing in on that. Okay, and so now we're going to get into number 2. The second thing that I feel like I've learned is that my partner isn't responsible for meeting needs that I'm not even meeting for myself. So this showed up, before we even broke up. I constantly was using quality time, like weaponizing it against him. I learned my love languages, and I was like, my love language is quality time. So you need to spend quality time with me. But was I spending quality time with myself? No. And this was something that I learned from Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is. It's, I think, a great way to kind of turn it around on us. I think she even calls it the turnaround in the book. But it's like, whatever you think that they should be doing, turn it around. And can you be doing that for yourself? Or where are you doing that for yourself? Or where are you not doing that for yourself? Because it's likely that you're not. And so learning, okay, whenever I say he should be doing whatever, I'm going to ask myself, am I doing that for myself? Because if I'm trying to get a need met from him before I've even met it for myself, what's going to end up happening is it's going to fill that void, and it's going to be like a dopamine hit, but I'm going to be seeking it again and again and again and again. And in my experience, if I haven't met that need for myself and he meets it for me, I tend to critique the way that he meets that need. And the reason why I think we do this unconsciously or subconsciously is because if it was actually enough, if we actually let the way that they met the need be adequate, then it could stop in a sense, right? And because when we're being filled with somebody else meeting the need for us, remember, if we're using that analogy that I've shared here on the podcast a billion times, but if we use that analogy that we each have a vessel in the center of our heart space, and when people pour into us, it hits from the top of the vessel, all those dopamine receptors, but it doesn't fill the vessel. It goes right out the bottom, right? So if I need Justin to do this, it hits the vessel, it hits all the dopamine receptors. It feels good for a moment, but then it's fleeting. So he does the dishes. It feels really good. You guys get sick of me using this analogy, I'm sure, but hey, we're gonna go with it. He does the dishes. It feels good, but it goes at the bottom, so it's fleeting. And so later when I look at the dishwasher and I see how I put the dishes in the dishwasher, I'm like, this is not even an issue that really comes up in our relationship, but I'm just using it because it's relatable, I think. I might nitpick how he put the dishes in. I don't do that anymore because I'm meeting all these needs for myself. I don't give a fuck how the dishes go in the dishwasher anymore. But there was a time where I did. There was a time where I needed the bowls to go in a certain way. I needed the dishes to go in a certain way. And if it wasn't in that way, then I would completely redo it. And so then he is probably going to feel inadequate. I'm going to feel unmet because I had to do it anyways. And it keeps us looping in that vicious cycle. And so if you haven't heard the needs, wants, desires episode, so much of what we need isn't actually in the detail of what we think it is. So much of what we need is actually underneath the detail or the want. So it's not usually the dishes, it's needing support. It's not usually quality time, it's needing connection. And so I'll leave that episode in the show notes. Definitely go check it out because that can be really, really supportive in helping us identify what the need is and then asking ourselves, how can I meet that need for myself first? It doesn't mean that you don't get to have that need met by your partner, but going back to the vessel, if I'm meeting that need for myself, then I fill my cup up with myself and meeting that need for myself so that when my partner pours into me and meets that need, because inevitably that's going to happen. Justin helps all of the time. And now I'm actually in a place to receive it. It's why I don't give a fuck how the dishes are put in the dishwasher anymore, because it's not it's not filling this vessel for me. I don't need it to fill this vessel for me because I've filled it for myself. So it adds to my overflow. And this is how we create spaciousness around receiving. But so many of us just don't even feel safe in receiving. But that's another topic for another day. Okay, moving into the third one. Them asking for space does not equal rejection. This is a big one for me. I sometimes still struggle with this one. Take that time to not self-reject and do something kind for the part of you that feels rejected. So during conflict, Justin tends to be the space taker. He needs some space away from me. He needs some space away from the conversation. I'm the anxious one that's like, no, we need to talk now. We need to start this out now. Space is uncomfortable as fuck for me. It's way less uncomfortable now. And so I do have to admit that it's really nice to not feel complete annihilation when Justin asks for space. But I will say that there is kind of always that ping of like, your body kind of tenses up and tightens up. Even this morning, we were like poking and prodding each other, and he kind of seemed like he got a little distant. And we joke with each other around those things where we just try to bug each other. But I noticed even him kind of like pulling away. I got nervous, and I think I even asked him, like, was that too much? Like, the anxious part of me is like, are we good? Are we okay? But when our partners ask for space, and I don't want this to be permissioning that we give for people who are like ghosting us for a very long period of time where there is no end date. I think if you're in a relationship or some sort of connection with someone and they ask for space, a way that we can make sure that we're holding ourselves and creating boundaries is to say, I hear you want space. How much space do you need? When do you want to circle back to this? Tomorrow, next week? Because some people will take space and then it's just open-ended and you're left in this flux. I don't think that that's healthy for anyone either. If they don't know, it's okay to say, I hear you don't know, but where is the line going to be? Because it's going to invite them into meeting you as well instead of you always accommodating them. But in that space, what I try to do for myself now, what I did actually as a practice that I think helped me grow my capacity to feel safe in space is every time he asked for it, I would go into our room, I would close the door, I'd put headphones in, and I would do a meditation. So that I'm not self-rejecting, so that I'm not self-abandoning, so that I can come into my physical body, so I can regulate my nervous system instead of spiraling. Because what I would do before is I would just spiral and then I would totally lose myself. And then I would usually like run in and try to like fix it then, which only caused more issues. So When they ask for space, it's okay to clarify how much time do you need? What kind of space do you need? What does that look like? Getting clarity on that, and then going and tending to yourself, however that looks. I gave an example of what mine looks like, but it could be go for a walk. It could be do a meditation. It could be call a friend. Do something to make sure that you're tending to yourself in that time. Okay. The fourth thing. Ooh, this is a good one. Just because your relationship triggers you, that doesn't mean that this isn't your person. Your relationship is a mirror. If you don't like what you see, get curious about your role in it. That's the hard truth part. Okay, so let's talk about the first part of this one, which is just because your relationship triggers you, this doesn't mean that this is not your person. I think I used to believe, I don't think, I know. I used to believe that a healthy relationship meant that I never got triggered, that I always felt happy, that there was never discomfort, there was never problems. Like that was a healthy relationship. What I know to be true now, for me at least, this is my truth, doesn't mean it's the truth, is that a healthy relationship is someone who you can navigate and explore triggers with curiosity. Someone who you feel safe enough to explore whatever activates you in your relationship so that you can better understand yourself. I see triggers in a completely different way that has brought me so much liberation and freedom, and that a trigger is an opportunity for me to meet a part of myself that is coming up to the surface. And every time I meet a trigger, I learn something about myself, I gain a new insight, and there's a lot of wisdom that comes with it. So now I'm like, bring on the triggers, baby. Okay, I should actually say that carefully. Like, don't bring on too much, okay? Only what my nervous system can handle at one given point in time. But I think I used to use it and weaponize it and be like, okay, well, this isn't my person because I'm always triggered. I'm always activated. So this is obviously not the person for me. But really, it's this person is triggering and activating me. Can I use my relationship and the mirror that my relationship is to see myself more deeply? Right? So that goes into that second piece, which is your relationship is a mirror. If you don't like what you see, get curious about your role in it. So if Justin is being rude or disrespectful to me, can I ask myself, if this is a mirror, where am I also being rude or disrespectful? Right? Because almost 9.9 times out of 10, you guys, whatever I'm getting from him is something that I have been giving consciously or unconsciously. It's that moment of reflection. If I'm like, oh, I feel like there's no connection here. Well, have I been connecting with him? Have I been connecting with myself? Where am I not connecting? Where have I been dissociating? Okay, let me tend to that. It is so, so powerful. If you're continuing to get what feels like rejection, for example, or abandonment, reflecting on where am I rejecting or where am I abandoning? So often we're hypercritical and judgmental of our partners and then get upset when they're critical or judgmental of us. But it's like, I used to say it in the classroom all the time, like you get what you give. And it's just so true. If what you want is respect and kindness, we have to ask ourselves, are we actually being respectful and kind? This is a big one. And it's an easy one to look at if you're willing to stay curious and ask the really hard questions. Like, he's not respecting my boundary. Am I respecting my boundary? If you've listened to the episode on boundaries recently, right? The only person responsible for respecting your boundaries, you. The more you respect your boundary, guess what? They're going to respect your boundary. Number 6, it is okay to apologize for the impact I had on my partner, even if it wasn't my intention. Apologizing in a conflict doesn't mean that their experience is the truth. Okay, I hear this all of the time when I'm listening to people hashing out conflict, or when I say, like, okay, well, what did that sound like? What did you say? What did he say? And they're like, okay, well, he said that I hurt his feelings because I said blah, 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 blah. But that wasn't my intention. Okay, how many of you guys are like, I say that all the time? But that wasn't my intention. I'm sorry that happened. That wasn't my intention. I'm sorry you feel that way. That wasn't my intention. Invalidating, invalidating, invalidating. Impact is not the same as intention, right? It's okay that that wasn't your intention, but what you're saying when you communicate that to them is you're saying that what you're experiencing isn't valid. Because I didn't intend it, then it's wrong that you felt that way. When I stop, I don't even use that anymore. I don't even say that wasn't my intention. Or at least I try really, really hard not to, because it's so invalidating. I hate it when people say it to me now. Well, that wasn't my intention. That's great that that wasn't your intention, and still that's how it impacted me. Right? So what we get to do in these moments within our relationships that I think is so advantageous for us to do if we're wanting to build these loving, reciprocal, vulnerable connections with people is apologizing for the impact that I had on you and thanking them for having the courage to share their truth with you. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I really appreciate your honesty and being vulnerable and sharing that truth, sharing your truth. I'm sorry. We're so afraid of saying I'm sorry because we think it means that we are succumbing or agreeing to some sort of wrongdoing that we've done, that we're saying that what we did was intentional, but that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, I can honor and respect your truth at the same time of knowing and respecting and knowing my truth. This is a whole nother level of relationships that I think is possible for all of us to get to, is accessible to all of us. It takes a lot of inner work because the part of us that is terrified for apologizing for impact is the part of us that's terrified of being perceived as wrong or bad. I was so terrified for the longest time of being perceived as wrong or bad. I'm still am, honestly. And so I have to tend to that part of me and understand that I'm going to impact my partner, my family, my friends, our community in a way that I don't intend, but that doesn't change the fact that it has an impact. And so if I respect autonomy and sovereignty, then I can respect somebody else's truth and I can meet them in that. And I always want people to feel safe enough to communicate that with me. I want to be a safe place for people to speak their truth. And so that's going to require me to put my ego and my pride down and put it aside to meet them in that. And so number 6 actually goes hand in hand with number 7. Number 7 is trying to convince them that it wasn't my intention only invalidates their experience, which is kind of what I've already talked about. But the second part of number 7 is this will only create a more hostile and defensive environment for where both people feel unheard. So this is the downside of being unwilling to meet somebody else in their truth, is that we dig our heels in and they dig their heels in, and there has to be someone who is right and there has to be someone who is wrong. And when we play in that paradigm of someone's right and someone's wrong, is we play into the paradigm of victim and villain or victim and perpetrator. And of course, neither person wants to be the villain, right? If your partner is the bad guy in the story, guess what? You're the bad guy in theirs. That's just how it goes. I have received messages from people, let's use this as an example, where they have taken some piece of my content and the way that they received it or the way that they're hearing it or the way that they're digesting it is not supportive for them in whatever way. And so they have to make me wrong for whatever reason. I can sit here and defend myself and try to get them to see my perspective, see my point of view. I can see where they took it and like maybe twisted it. And I can sit there and try to get them to see what I really mean. But at the end of the day, that's not what connecting is about. At the end of the day, I see you and how you're receiving that. Thank you for sharing your perspective. How can I support you? in this moment. That builds connection. I'm not trying to convince you that I'm right, because if I'm trying to convince you that I'm right, then you have to be wrong. And I don't think anyone is wrong for how they're receiving something. It's true for them. I can't possibly know people's lived experiences and how they're navigating their life and what they're moving through and what they're holding. So the most loving thing I can do is say, yeah, I could totally see why you would feel that way. Thank you for sharing that with me. I do actually appreciate it. I feel an honor and a privilege to witness people in their truth, even if it's them being pissed off at me from whatever I share on the podcast or content. If I have to defend myself, then I'm coming to the conversation armored up with a weapon. And so what is anyone going to do if I come with armor and a weapon? They're going to come with armor and a weapon. And this is what we're doing in our relationships. When they're saying, no, but that's not what my intention was. Okay, well, now I have to prove that I'm right. And the other person is like, well, if you're right, then I'm wrong. So no, I have to prove that I'm right. At that point, now both partners are in this self-preservation mode, trying to go down. We're going down with a fight. And I'm not wanting to participate in that in my relationships anymore. It's exhausting. And it doesn't actually get me what I think it's going to get me, which is I'm right, which means I'm worthy, which means I'm lovable, right? That's what it comes down to. If I'm right, then I'm good. And if I'm good, then I'm worthy. And if I'm worthy, then I won't end up alone. That's some shadowy stuff there that I've already uncovered for myself. And I don't know if that resonates with you guys, but that was a big one for me. So I really come to conflicts with compassion, with an understanding that their truth is going to be different than my truth sometimes. And apologizing, respecting, and honoring their truth doesn't mean it's the truth. It means it's their truth, right? Their truth and my truth get to exist at the same time, which is number 8. You can hold two truths at the same time, and you don't have to make either person wrong or bad. This is how we grow and honor vulnerability in a relationship. And I'm not going to say it's easy. There are days where it is easy. There are days when it is hard. And what helps me the most is that I know my somatic cues and I know my mental cues. My somatic cues are the fire, hot ears, the tingling and losing feeling in my fingertips. It's the feeling in the gut of my stomach, like my stomach is like dropped. And my thought cues are I need to defend myself, is like the big one. That's when I know I need to pause. I need to pause and I need to breathe, because a part of me is going to come in to try to be right. And that part of me that needs to be right is the part of me that's terrified of being alone because I'm being perceived as wrong or bad. And that's where like my belonging and my safety lives. And so being able to pause long enough to hold that part of myself and see it for what it is, love it, understand it, validate it. And then I don't need to defend myself in my relationship or with somebody online or whatever, what have you, because the dream that I hold and the vision that I hold in my heart is of a loving and unconditionally loving and compassionate universe, world. And that requires me to unconditionally love others. Invites me to seeing all of the places where I get to unconditionally love someone. And unconditionally loving someone is to love without conditions, right? Duh. But it means that your truth can be different than mine, and I still love you. Not I only love you if you support me, or I only love you if you see my side, or I only love you if you see me as the right one. No, I love you even when you see me as wrong. I love you even when you see me as bad. I can understand and see your point of view. That's unconditionally loving. So I hope these 8 lessons provided maybe a glimpse or an idea of something that is possible for you in your life with some of the examples that I've shared from my life, my relationship, and what I'm still learning and still, frankly, ebbing and flowing in. Some days these lessons, I'm like, yes, I'm holding on to them and I've got them and I'm anchored in them. But sometimes I'm messy. And that is why I just love the podcast, because I get to share the messy parts. It's definitely why I love the membership, because we're sharing the messy parts every week. On Sundays, we do Shadow Work Sundays in our group chat, and we're all exploring the messy part of all of this healing. And some weeks are easier than others, but having a place where we can share those messy parts is really, really powerful. And it's why healing codependency and community is so vital. Of course, anything's possible and you can reach this point of healing on your own. However, in codependency, there's just these deep layers of shame and embarrassment and guilt that come up, where self-compassion can be really challenging to access. And so in community, when other people are speaking to things that you resonate with or are experiencing currently in your life, it is natural to have compassion and love for somebody else. And when you have that compassion and love for someone who is experiencing something you experience, that compassion and love overflows into you. And so, where there was once shame and guilt and embarrassment, there are also layers of compassion and love, and not to mention belonging, because healing the mother wound is healing from judgment. And we are usually the biggest critics of ourselves. And so if you're looking for a community, if you feel like you've been stuck and brushing up against this edge of healing where it's just kind of looping, and you're ready for that next phase, that next evolution, you're ready to embody this healing in a new way, I would be so honored to have you join our community. Remembering that this season of the podcast, we're doing a special discount code for podcast listeners. So make sure you use the special discount code in the show notes or the description box below. You can get a whole year of support for only $63 for the year. Makes it less than $6, which at this point is way less than my fancy latte on Fridays. And yeah, it would just be a privilege to have you in there. If this podcast episode was helpful or supportive, it would mean the world to me for you just to take a moment to rate or review the podcast if you haven't done so already. It's been an honor to be with you on this journey. If this podcast episode or any of them have resonated with you, I always welcome you to show up in the DMs. I check them every single day and respond. So it would be an honor to witness you there as well if you feel called to share. I love you all so much, and I will see you next week. Bye.